Do choices really matter? We're going to be having a discussion about that and whether choices in games matter on a varying degree of levels, as well as a lot of the big Battlefield 5 news. So stay tuned, because this is Inventory Full.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Welcome, everybody, into the Inventory Full studio. This isn't the Inventory Full studio. This is the Popcorn Talk Network studio. Thank you to fine folks. If you can't tell, the logos are everywhere. So, thank you to the fine folks at Popcorn Talk for giving us a place to talk about video games and video game culture. Welcome in. I'm one of your hosts, Mark B. Donica, joined as always by the team. Hey, look, it's Nate Miller.
What's up, nerds?
Hey, look, it's Stacey Shuttleworth.
Hey, guys.
Oh, that's right. No, it was good. It was perfect.
Thanks.
It was great. All of the transitions. Hi, everybody. Patrick is not with us today. It is a holiday, so he's spending some time with his folks that have traveled into town. But make sure to get him into the conversation at P to the D's. He gets an full intro, because we don't, because he's not here. Anyway, we're gonna have a nice conversation. A lot of the times, especially last week, there's just a lot of news, and we don't get a chance to sort of talk and expand our horizons and have discussions. Nate, this is something that you've been trying to pull for quite some time. And luckily, with today being a holiday, the studio isn't as crowded, so we get an opportunity to take a little bit more time than we usually would. Thank you to the folks at Popcorn Talk again, and Steve in the booth.
Heyo.
Hey, it's Steve. So we're gonna be, the main crux of today's show is gonna be talking about choices, but there were a couple of stories that I did want to bring up because I think there's a lot to talk about. But before we get to those, let's talk about what we've been playing. I was very boring. I'll get my stuff out of the way really quick. I sort of stayed in my comfort zone. I played some Junkenstein's Revenge for the Overwatch special event, and I keep missing Lucio Ball, which is my favorite of the arcades. I'm a little sad that they're moving every single day, because they're just on days when I can't play. And if you joined us over the weekend, I did a build in Minecraft. I started a build of Camp Campbell from one of my favorite animated series, Camp, and I plan on continuing that. So I'm thanking to everybody who joined. We had some people rating from our friend and mod Zavader. So thank you for joining us on that. I had a lot of being back in Minecraft, especially in creative mode, has been a lot of fun. But that's all that I played, really. Stacey,
Yeah.
you've been playing a lot of stuff.
I mean, relatively. I've done a lot of family stuff over the weekend, so I didn't get as much gaming as I wanted to in. But yeah, I started that God of War.
Oh yeah,
I did
it. So this will be 3 out of 4 of us that have played the game. Initial thoughts. What do you think about it so far?
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
The camera work is so interesting, and it's really cool to follow. I like that the camera is so fluid, but it also gives you those little classic cues to know, oh no, it's your turn now, go. Otherwise.
When it goes right back to, it's something, and then it sweeps, and then it's right behind you again. You're like, oh, all right, time to move again.
I can go.
How much of it did you get to play?
Oh gosh, I only played maybe 2 hours worth.
That's what I figured.
Very introductory stuff, mostly only.
One of my favorite things about God of War is I asked Patrick this right after I started my first play session was, do you keep learning new stuff as while there is a moment that you're going to experience when you go, oh, now the game started. And then you have that moment again and again. And
I know everything I need to know.
Exactly.
Oh, nope, there's more.
Exactly. And that's one of my favorite things about it is it does it so naturally and not really heavy fisted of well, you're gonna need this power up, you're gonna need that power up. Well, I guess it's time for a new thing. It says I'm gonna learn something new, but it always does it in a way that benefits the story first, which is why playing this game in easy mode isn't that much of a thing, because you're a god anyway, and it helps with the power of fantasy. But how do you like handling the axe?
I like the axe. I like throwing the axe. I like throwing the axe at enemies and then having it swing back to me and hit them again on the way back.
It's so much fun.
And that's the only way to attack, really.
So are you just throwing the axe?
Okay, so I'm doing a combination of just throwing the axe and then melee combos, because then you get to do that cool R3 power-up attack and rip the enemies in half, which I like equally as much as throwing the axe at them. So combat has been frustrating for my husband, who's watching me play this game.
Who comments she was checking it everywhere. Everywhere. It's so much fun.
Once you learn that if you throw the axe at certain things, it does stuff, you have to throw the axe at everything to make sure that those things don't do stuff too.
This is the God of War version of, since God of War is ostensibly about I need to climb that mountain, you need to find something else to do everything of, and it's I need to throw the axe at everything.
Right, the goal is already to climb that mountain. So my only purpose in gaming is already fulfilled.
Already Game of the Year.
And Kratos can't read, so it's not like she can find any books.
Okay, but there's lots of lore. Yeah, there's no books to read, but there's lots of ancient text.
It's boy, read that for me.
Yeah,
Yes.
he'll read it to you.
Yeah. The interaction between getting the fact that you're thrust into the relationship so. Despite, this is the boy's father, they should have some sort of an established relationship, and yet they're still trying to figure out how to be around each other, and to be present for that is pretty interesting. There's a lot of idle chatter that happens that really helps you figure out what their relationship is. And it's one of those things where it's one of those games where I'm like, I beat it the day of a show last week, and I was like, who wants it? Somebody needs to play this game.
Someone claim it.
Please.
Yes.
Because this is one of those games that I think more so for story, but also for gameplay. Like the story inherits the gameplay as opposed to the other way around. And I've just been obsessed with watching any and every piece of extra content that this has. I'm really excited for everybody to finish because PlayStation has been releasing director's commentary for particular scenes from the game, or particular parts where Cory Barlog is talking over the game and going, oh, well, this is why we did this and this and this. And I was just like, oh, this is the best.
More to look forward to.
Yeah. But, and it also, your thoughts on the first fight?
Like the first
boss battle.
Man, that was frustrating. But expected of gods, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I guess. Man. I mean, it was real cool getting thrown through buildings and through fucking rocks.
Nate, you got to red box this, man. You got to red box this. Well, now that so you've been running through some games yourself.
Yeah.
So you just finished Deadfire 2, yeah? Or Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire.
Yes.
Yeah.
I finished a run. Yes.
Okay, a single run. Tell us about it. Because I've been hearing about this game ad nauseum at work, but like getting an actual no offense to the folks that I work for, but getting a non-paid for reaction.
Right.
I've been looking forward to.
Yeah. No. I really enjoyed it a lot. It took me about 30 hours to get to the end. The final kind of decisions that you have to make at the end, I thought were really interesting, and the kind of the way it played out, the way that decisions I had made earlier impacted the way things played out, and there's lots of. It reminded me a lot as I was playing it of New Vegas. I said this last week, but even in the way that it ends.
How about that? Both Obsidian games, right?
Yes. Yeah. But just the way that the different factions, like, it was really hard to choose, like, and honestly, because I had the consolidation of knowing I'm going to play this again and do other things, that is only what made it kind of. That kind of helped me make my decision and like, all right, this is what I'm going to do this playthrough. Because for a minute I was like, I don't know who to pick, who to back. Because there's like 4 different factions at a certain point that all can kind of get you where you need to go to kind of end the game. But yeah, it was dizzying. And I really enjoyed the companions. The voice acting is phenomenal. It makes a huge difference for games like that have so much text for like... conversation interaction within like the way stories play out, and also giving you options to do different things. It was really cool. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Well, I'm excited to talk more about the choice, the elements of choice, because some of the stuff that you sent us to look over reminded me like, oh yeah, there was something that you could choose in this game, and it didn't mean anything.
Yeah. I played
Opened up old wounds.
Yeah, that one kind of has both. It has all of the little pieces that I want to talk about that we can talk about later. I do also want to mention I've still been playing Destiny. It was Iron Banner weekend.
I think I have something for you in my car, Destiny related.
Hopped in a few sweaty 6v6s.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
pretty fun. Game's in a good place.
Are you still playing State of Decay? Begrudgingly,
Look,
yes.
I want to like this game, okay? And it's very
Oh, that's the
likable.
worst.
But it's just so buggy right now. And like the main draw is the multiplayer, and the multiplayer is the buggiest spot. I tried to get together with 2 other friends to do some co-op, and they were doing fine up until 40 minutes later when I was like, all right, I'm ready, I'm going to join you guys. And they just started having connection issues. And then we just couldn't get on the same server. And when we did, we couldn't see each other sometimes. Or there would be invisible zombies that people were dying to. Yeah, some crazy buggy stuff. But the core of the game is there. The systems are there. It looks pretty good. It just needs some love. So hopefully, I'm assuming that they're going to give it more patches and update it. Because this, it had a pretty extensive beta, from what I understand. That got lots of balance updates and stuff.
Yeah, and they were kind of user. It wasn't open. I thought, if I remember correctly, it was closed. And especially with a franchise that, in a world where Microsoft doesn't have as frequent of a flexing of a first-party game, for something to launch like this is really upsetting. Even though word's been going around that Microsoft doesn't care as much about single party games and single party development anymore as much as having studios to do that for them. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because it really seems like if they did focus on it, this would be a great, another game like Sea of Thieves that is great to play with your friends, and it's cross-platform. That should be a big draw for them to get people to choose buying Xboxes over a PlayStation, because you get to bridge the PC community and the console community, and especially in a game like this where there's no PvP, so it's not like there's a imbalance in matchmaking like that. It's just being able to play with more friends, having more options.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I did want to pivot into PUBG. The PUBG Corp came out recently and mentioned that there was a lot of performance changes that they admittedly haven't been able to get to. Optimization, vehicle optimization, because driving over the land too fast can, if you don't have a strong enough PC, it can wreck you. It can wreck you a little bit.
I mean, it's not even the PCs; it's just the terrain and the physics and stuff. Streamers that have the high end PCs with a streaming PC that's not with a separate PC to stream will still be in the trike, and you hit the wrong bump and just go flying, and then you're sailing through the air with a knockdown animation. And you just know that when you hit the ground, you're going to die. Yeah, it happens to everybody.
As well as cheating. And they're just trying to... this was something that you kept telling me about
netcode,
when it came to... Once they were going to go 1.0, optimization. Great. And here we are.
Yeah.
So Stacey, you've been playing a lot of Fortnite, but when was the last time you went back to PUBG?
I went back to PUBG when they did that 20v20v20 those maps, and I played a couple of rounds of that challenge and then the regular game then, and honestly it plays horribly.
Ooh.
It feels bad, and
yeah.
It's also, it feels worse for me because it's not something that I naturally click into. I can't just pick up that gun and go. So it's even harder. But that game, I mean, and I don't have a top of the line PC, but I have a decent PC, and it's choppy and it's rough. I mean, the terrain really screws you over, especially with a group of people who like to get in a vehicle and drive everywhere and anywhere. Yeah, Fortnite might be a more campy, ridiculous game, but it feels good to play.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't think PUBG feels.
Have you noticed a bit of a drop off, Nate? Because I know you used to play fairly regularly, and now there's just been a lot of other stuff to play. But what was it like? When was the last time you played? To be honest,
Probably like maybe a week or two ago.
okay.
Maybe 2 weeks.
And before that, like another couple of weeks.
Probably more frequently before that.
Okay.
I have my group of friends that I play with. I have a couple buddies that I play the game with fairly regularly. One of my friends has a baby, so for her, it's nice to be able to just like play a few rounds when the baby takes a nap or something, and then like baby wakes up, I have to take care of, like, okay, bye, we'll see you on the other side. Like, it's not the end of the world, you know. So it's a good game for that. It's hard to argue against that because it's still not optimized at the spot it should be, but it's gotten a lot better, which is like, it's not necessarily saying much, but it has gotten a lot better. They have worked on it, and to say that now they're going to focus on optimization, I'm optimistic, because it's not, they haven't left the game. They haven't left the game in like a stale state at all. They've been even the way the gun mechanics have all changed. I think that's all for the better. Now the vector's a little too strong right now, but it's nice to have variety in weapons and not just everybody running around with 2 ARs. They took off a level 3 helmet, so it's only in a crate. So now things like a KR, bolt action sniper rifles are all one taps to the head unless they get the thing from the crate. So it makes the crate, they change the meta. That's really good for games like this. So I haven't experienced a drop off. I never have an issue finding a game when I play. It's not like it ever takes a long time. The subreddit seems pretty active. I definitely see more people come play whenever they do like an event, and I don't think they've done any special weekend events in a while. Ever since they did
the 2020 was the last one.
No, they did another one.
They did a few
a couple more.
Yeah, they did some car ones, and then it stopped because they started doing the testing every weekend for the new map for Sanhok.
Yeah.
Right.
But now I think that's on live.
Well,
I haven't played.
Yeah,
because
that's going to be live end of June.
Yeah, so that's not even
Sonic,
live yet.
But Myanmar just went live for Xbox.
For Xbox, right.
So, and especially now developing for 2 consoles, that splits the team unless they just bought a second team to do it.
It's just the thing that I think the community is frustrated by, and why it's important that they make this statement, is because while they have worked somewhat on the optimization, it seems like they've made a lot more progress on the new maps and like a bunch of skins and loot boxes that nobody really wants and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people feel like they have all of this money and this energy, and they should have focused on the optimization first and got it like super polished and tight, and then started adding the microtransaction stuff, because then more people are going to play the game, and more people are going to want to spend money instead of trying to get people to spend money now when they already spent money on the game and it doesn't run very well.
Yeah, I'm not going to put money into getting skins or something cool to carry around if the game barely works for me.
But I still think that it offers a unique gameplay experience in Loop that isn't really replicated in any other game right now, because I would say that Fortnite is the same too, because they operate in different spaces, and I think that's part of the reason why they're both so successful. Also, Fortnite's free, but
H1Z1 Battle Royale is free on the PlayStation Network now.
Yeah,
and what made me sad about that was they don't have. If they had Auto Royale for free on there, I think that would have been a huge spike at Fortnite on PlayStation at least.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it didn't launch with it. Some of my friends that play console games are like, "Oh yeah, we just started playing H1Z1," and I almost spit out my drink laughing, and I was like, you console plebs playing a dead game. But that's good that they're bringing it to them. I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, Steve, did you just pull up H1Z1 has 1.5 million downloads on the here?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
So the open beta, a huge thank you to the 1.5 million plus of you who have joined us in the arena since H1Z1 open beta launched in PS4 yesterday. And this tweet was May 25th.
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
We're continuing to work to resolve login and purchase issues, and we're committed to bringing you a pure Battle Royale experience. So one of the things that they launched with is they have a PlayStation Plus pack, cosmetic pack. So it's like, oh, there's some cool stuff that kind of looks PlayStation Network-y or something, and they have a bunch of other
Is
packs.
it free to play?
It's free. Yeah, the Battle Royale is free, but the H1Z1 base game, you can get packs that have cosmetics in them. So that's the purchasable stuff.
But the game is free.
But the game is free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I downloaded it. I
How's it play?
was about to download it, and then I was looking for Auto Royale because I was like, that I've been watching people play that. I've been watching people stream that.
Yeah.
And like, that looks like fun.
I actually kind of want to play that.
Yeah.
But I don't have anyone to play
Let's
with on
reach
PC.
out to our friends at the studio. Maybe.
I mean,
Either way.
if they revive this and actually put some care into it, which it seems like they are, and it goes over well, great. I mean, this is going to be the closest thing of competition to PUBG in terms of that like free to play space, like realism.
But also, especially from like we're talking about how the vehicle play in PUBG isn't optimized to a point where it's wrecking top of the line PCs. And here's H1Z1 with a game mode that is cars and well optimized and plays really well and is fun.
Is it well optimized?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from everything that I've seen, the variety of people that I've watched play, so
It's also a different console's also a different space.
exactly.
too.
I can agree with that as well. So moving from there, something that I saw that was really interesting. This is an article on Polygon. Polygon. Full Sail University is adding an esports focus to their sportscasting class. Gus Ramsey, who is a former commentator from ESPN over the course of 10 years from 98 to 2008, teaches this class at Full Sail. And Full Sail is like I want to say technical school, but it's more of like a technician school
Like a
where
trade
it's like sound, trade school for technicians, video, sound, theater, live, a whole bunch of stuff. They shoot. There's a WWE show that shoots at Full Sail in Florida, where it's run by students, or a lot of the students do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I found this interesting because we've had several discussions about one organization in particular when it comes to shoutcasting, and the fact that these folks, Gus Ramsey, Josh Mora, and Dan Patrick, are all coming together to make sure that everybody has the basics of what it's like to cover sports, but also finding the middle ground between explaining what's going on for people who may be new to the space and not explaining everything to the quote veterans of the space. Like, I know the game, shut up and just tell me what's happening. And finding, and the fact that there is money being put into courses to get people up to speed and be professionals that can be put onto television. This is a very, very cool read. I highly recommend everybody go check it out. It's on Polygon. It's called Dan Patrick Sportscasting School, Esports, Full Sail University. Check it out. But I wanted to bring it up because is there a of the various esports that we watch as a group, is there one that you would compare to being, or at least for a type of game, would you compare to being the most quote professional? Is there one that is there one that reflects?
Did you get that?
Is there a, because they get a lot of the same people for various games. So is there a game type plus people that resembles a professional sports broadcast?
I mean, arguably, the entire this entire competitive Overwatch space has been designed to be professional, right? It hasn't risen up from the audience necessarily. It's been built as professional. I'm not saying it is.
But isn't it boo-boo, though?
I'm not saying it's actually
Right.
professional, but
The
it
answer is
designed.
Riot.
Yeah.
Because Riot did it the right way from, like, the ground up.
I'm not talking about
and-
building. I'm talking about the
Right.
commentating, because we're talking about commentating.
Right. But that's what I mean.
Okay.
Because they got people that really, all of the people that are the main shoutcasters are people who played the game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them work for Riot, not all of them, but a lot of them played the game. A lot of ex-streamers also turn into shoutcasters, or I'm sorry, ex-players turn into pro players and stuff. And it's all a great combination. like they always seem to get a good balance of player stats, flow of the game, predictions of what's going to happen as a result of different plays. The drafting phase is a very big part too, where they talk about like drafting strategies and team compositions as the draft is going on. And then they also always dedicate time after games are over to like, let's analyze this big play of the game. And they do the big screen thing with the slow motion. Then they have a desk of analysts talk about the game overall. And it's like one of the guys who is a pro player on a team who's like a great popular player, but they got eliminated, so he hasn't been playing recently. But, you know, they get people who are involved to talk about it. They do it all very professionally, but it's all from a point of view, and like it's all just as like the players and people that watch the game would be interested in seeing. I think the downside is some of them sometimes are not very new watcher friendly. Like if you didn't know what was going on and you heard the commentation, you'd be like really confused. But I think they also do a great job of juggling that, because it's not like the same people every time. Whenever they do an event, they'll have like 6 commentators, and it'll be like, all right, it's these 4 this game, and then they'll swap 2, and then they'll swap 2. And so sometimes you get the friendly guy is on there who's like explaining everything, and then sometimes you get the other guys who are just like super hype and just calling out like player ability names and stuff that people are like, I don't know what the ability is called, stuff like that.
So the way that you describe that reminds me a lot of how Overwatch League does it, and yet I still as a fan of Overwatch, I still think that there's a barrier between the commentators. I think they're still trying to find their flow, because so much of the game can just happen, and you can just let the game happen, and especially because there can be 6 1v1 instances happening at the same exact time. So, but while people go, oh, we're following this amazing player who will probably make great plays, then you go to the healer who ended up being in a corner and battle mercying their way out, and it makes for a completely different moment that you didn't see.
That's why I think even with games like the MOBAs, like Dota and League, the perspective is a huge advantage in terms of the spectator window. Being able to see top down, like games, League and Dota are both not made to be esports, but there's definitely a point in time in the design cycle where they went, all right, this is a thing, we need to design around this. League did a whole map overhaul where they said it like over and over again, clarity. We're going for clarity. They're redoing all the spells for clarity. They're doing all the colors for clarity, to clearly define stuff. So even if you don't know what's going on, you can look and kind of decipher, right, that's the person the player is, that's the minion, that's a wall, whatever. And it makes it much easier to see what's going on. And also it makes for perfect replays of like, there's no bad angles, really. You know what I mean? You either see it or you don't. It's like, oh, the camera's in the wrong spot. Well, then you just move it in a replay.
As opposed to Overwatch being
there's so many angles. And just like you said, it's so hard. Like the plays happen so fast, and people can move so fast. Like, how do you set up the camera for like, all right, in League, okay, the Baron pit is always in the same spot. They're always going to fight in some place around that. You know, maybe you move a little bit, but in Overwatch, the fight on a point could happen in any number of places around the point, at any different heights, and in different rooms and stuff. It's hard. I think that's the biggest barrier is being able to spectate, not being in it.
And I think the rounds that end up coming out the best are either the capture the point or the payload maps, because the action is supposed to be centered around one point.
It's easier to follow the action. Yeah, and you know, with Overwatch especially, the predictive ability, since it's so new, there's been a lot of struggle with, okay, so you follow this player that usually does really big plays, and you follow them, and then, you know, all of a sudden they're sneaking around the back for 2 minutes, and there's a huge game-changing fight on the point, and then you're like, well, we just missed all of that while this tracer was trying to set up a pulse bomb.
Yeah. The best place to watch Overwatch League is in the arena, because you get to watch everybody's health, everybody's like, are they on fire, like their streaks, and everything is all right in front of you. That is what it is designed for.
It is beautifully set up in that arena.
Yeah.
Like they really have it laid out, but you have to be there because you don't get that on the screen.
Yeah. I think eventually over time, you know, it takes time to shop these skills and get better, but also like the storylines and the dynasties, these are the things that the sportscasters have, talking about different legendary players' legacies and their stats to compare new players to, talking about teams' runs and the different team, like the player compositions and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is part of the reason why League is able to like be so professional, because they can talk about, they have 8 seasons now of professional play in their game to reference of, we have a faker who is like the Michael Jordan of League of Legends.
Yeah,
or whatever.
He won Player of the Year last year, didn't he? Like your esports
many,
player of the
many
year.
times, yes. He yes, at the video
At the VGMs,
yeah. So they've got the celebrities, they have the dynasties of like TSM and CLG, they have the regional rivalries of like EA versus NA, same kind of thing. So it's very it's cool, especially when you get to the World Finals and you get to hear people talk about like the storytelling of other regions. That's really why I enjoy watching the finals, because even though I like watching it, I barely watch the regular season, let alone watching another region's season. So to be able to go to the playoffs and the World Finals in like the first rounds, and you always get the commentators saying like, oh, this team, came from the bottom of their bracket and, finally got it together and ended up in first place, and now they're here in the finals competing, and then getting to follow those teams, like that story, that's the interesting part to me. And that I think is what a lot of people like in sports. That's why people have a favorite team, because you're kind of subscribing to that story and getting invested in it.
And that's ultimately everything. To me, everything ends up going back to professional wrestling, because one of the things that people like about professional wrestling isn't just that it's a couple of dudes hitting each other, but it's the story, and they're getting invested in the story. And there was a moment, or there was a while, a couple years ago, where UFC was really, really, really huge. And it's not that it hasn't been big, but it was really, really big. And one of the biggest fights, because I remember watching it, was because a dude was being a D-bag. He wouldn't, at the weigh-in, he was spitting at the other guy. He wasn't going in for handshakes, like all this stuff, and it made him a villain. And people were like, beat this guy up. And I was like, that's professional wrestling. And it's about the underdog story. In terms of Overwatch League, I'm always a passive fan of the Shanghai Dragons. Always. Because they're the underdog, and you really want them to win. And it's one of the things that even walking around with my keys and having my gladiators thing poking out at the office was like, you're not a Valiant guy. I went, no, but I like rooting. First of all, wedding colors. Second of all, I like before I even knew who these teams were, because I didn't have the background of who these teams were, and I think that does the Overwatch League a disservice by not having that footage. Like they're like, teams and teams celebrate. These guys run a team together, but I don't know that story.
You reminded me. I think it's very much worth bringing up the commentators in the fighting game circuits.
I love them.
Definitely some of the most professional I've seen, especially when you get to like Evo and the finals and stuff. Again, the storytelling, the rivalry is, talking when you get people talking about, yes, exactly. And even talking about also characters too, and like this person plays this person in these type of fights, or they play with this type of play style, and then oh my god, they're bringing out their pocket pick that we've never seen. Yeah, it's like hype stuff like that.
So one of my favorite things about Evo is the moment where it's like one more round before somebody gets like either knocked into the losers bracket or knocked out, and they're just like twiddling their fingers and they're thinking, and they're like hovering over a character, and like the noise is starting to build. And if it's, I'm kind of familiar with the Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom, and like a couple of games that I'm kind of familiar with, like character balancing. But for like, there was one year for King of Fighters where somebody picked this really weird team of 3, and the crowd reacted huge, and they went, this is, and immediately with the same excitement as the crowd is like, this is why this is unprecedented, this is why this is a thing, and boom boom boom, all the facts. By the time the match starts, cleaning house, whatever, with that new team. And that's what made me love the fighting game community, was the shoutcasting more so than just watching people fight.
Right.
But Miss K Rose in chat, before we get too far away, I really like watching the Overwatch League, but I think part of it is that it's a game I actually play. I'm a Fuel fan because I like the colors, but I had no clue who to follow, and while I'm still a Fuel fan, it's been rough. Yeah, they've been through some ups and downs. They're still playing really well. Despite
they beat my Fusion.
Oh yeah, that's right, Philly. I forgot you were a Philly fan too. But it's one of the things that I highly, highly recommend if anybody is in town and has a passing enjoyment of esports, and just esports in general. Tickets are cheap for the Overwatch, for the Blizzard Arena.
Especially during the week.
Especially during the week, and they've got like free giveaways on Wednesday and Thursday shows to try to pack the crowd.
Gotta get those people in those seats.
Yeah, you get a rally towel or a water bottle, but go. It's one of those things where they designed that experience for the people in the audience, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Were you going to say follow up?
Just agreeing completely. It really is an immersive experience. Like, that environment is so well suited to, I mean, right now for the Overwatch community and to just Overwatch fans. You get all the information you need, very overwhelmingly thrown in your face, but it makes it a lot of fun.
Robbie says weekdays are like 2 for $22. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, I definitely think I would enjoy watching Overwatch more if I played it more. But why I don't play Overwatch more is a discussion we'll have to have on another episode.
Sure. The last thing before we get into our deep dive discussion, and I'm so happy that we have time because we've been able to take some time and discuss things. Battlefield 5 debuted. We've got a trailer that we're gonna watch whenever Steve's back around. Hey, Steve. That wasn't a knock. I love you. But let's take a look at that as we kind of talk over it. A lot of changes coming into the Battlefield 5 release that make me a little bit more excited for the game, and it's one of the lessons learned from Star Wars Battlefront 2. 100% is how they're handling their loot. Any loot that it changes gameplay, you can only earn by playing in game, and you earn credits by playing. There are also cosmetic items that you can also earn by playing, but you can also then pay real money in order to get those cosmetic items. So that's an amazing foot forward when it comes to loot boxes and EA learning from Battlefront 2. But in terms of single player, there's going to be a lot. It's similar to how Battlefield 1 operated, where you're traveling around the world and doing these different instances.
Scenarios,
yeah. So it's one character in Norway, a character in Greece, a character here, there, around the world. And I really like that. I didn't play much of Battlefield 1, but I really liked the idea of being able to pop in and pop out of these various locations. They're also trying to focus a lot more on squad-based tactics. And Battlefield has always been a squad-based game, but now they're trying to sort of... they're trying to introduce a lot more scarcity. So when you respawn on your group, you may have to go back to your last post and get more ammo, more grenades, more anything. Or you can spawn on your squad and just try to help make that last push. It's a lot harder to advance by lone wolfing it, which I think helps me a lot when it comes to first-person shooter games. Is a lot of the lone wolfing it as opposed to no, we need to stay in a group. Also, anybody can revive, but a medic can revive you to 100%. Is that a barbed wire cricket bat? That looked cool. But DICE is putting a lot of work into this. They've got a couple of go ahead.
What was the last one was called Battlefield 1, right?
Yeah, because it was World War I.
And now we're just going...
And now we're back to Battlefield 5. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Shout out to the marketing team. Why not just call it Battlefield 2? If you're going to do it, just commit. It's World War II.
If they had called it Battlefield 1, if they spelled it out as opposed to giving it the number... this is Battlefield V. It's still Battlefield 5, but it's not because it wasn't Battlefield IV. It was Battlefield 4 with like a alphanumeric 4 as opposed to a Roman numeral 4. Whereas this is Battlefield 5 with a Roman numeral 5.
That just makes it worse.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's not helping.
Because then if it's going to be a number, it should just be a number like the last one.
you got to have some consistency.
No, Battlefield like a hand
like
with
5
fingers.
No, it's
the Frostbite
an arrow
5
pointing to the disc inside.
Are we referring to the woman with the prosthetic limb here?
No, I'm not referring to the woman with a prosthetic limb. I'm not a monster. Watch Camp Season 3, Episode 1. But oh god, it's so. Oh, have you watched it yet?
I watched it.
So good. I watched it like 4 times. But some of the new stuff in multiplayer, I like. There's a game called Combined Arms, which is essentially cooperative raid like engagements where you just have to move to the next thing.
Okay.
Grand Operations is a 64 player engagement that plays out over 3 to 4 matches.
They had that last game.
Where it takes place day after day after day after day
yeah,
with
no,
different
that's
missions.
And
Okay.
That's combined arms, right?
Grand Operations. This one is called Grand Operations, the one that I'm talking about.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, cool. They called that as new. But also something that they learned or something that they quote learned from Battlefront 2 is there's going to be no premium pass that they traditionally offer, and all of the future updates are going to be free. No BR mode. Is that good or bad for you?
I mean, I was not going to buy it either way, but
This is one of those
Talking
things.
about last week, saying that was a missed opportunity if they weren't going to jump on that.
I don't know. I think Battlefield is focusing on all the stuff that makes them Battlefield and plussing it up just a little bit here and there, and they're making a solid experience. Like I don't
like the things that make Battlefield. The feeling of insignificance when you spawn in and just get mowed down.
One of my favorite things about like Battlefield, I haven't had too storied of a past with, but Battlefield 3 had an open beta, and it was the first time that I ever played the game, and I just wanted to try it out, and I loved it because you had to stick together, you had to work objective to objective, and anybody that would run up would get killed, and it was even weirder because it took place in France and in the metro, which I had just come back from a trip of, and I was like, I was here like 2 months ago. This is really weird. I know this street. I know all of this stuff. This is bizarre. So it had a really weird thing, but it always made me even though I didn't actively buy a Battlefield every year, it always made me sort of pro Battlefield because it played to my sensibilities. And I really appreciated it to where I could, being this newcomer, I still felt like I could do some good. So it didn't do anything for you.
I mean, I played it. I had a buddy that bought it, and I bought it on sale a few years after it had been
Battlefield
out.
1? Or Battlefield 3?
Battlefield 1.
I'm just talking about Battlefield in general.
Battlefield 1.
Okay.
But not 1, but 1.
Not the original Battlefield,
Right.
Battlefield 1.
Yes.
Okay.
4.5.
Well, because it was Battlefield 1942, 1943, and then Battlefield 2, wasn't it?
Wasn't there like a future one too?
Eventually. Battlefield 4 was the future one. No.
It was Battlefield 21.
You're real quiet, by the way, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. Battlefield 21, I want to say 60, 34. I'll look it up.
I figured it would be 2142 just to keep that 42 year with it.
There was a future one.
Yeah.
I played that one. I played Battlefield 3 too. It was cool in how different it was, but it was also like so different.
Battlefield Hardline was the different one for me. I tried playing that one.
I played the story of Hardline.
Yeah.
Just because that was fun, but wasn't a fan of the
I also
multiplayer.
like the physics of a Battlefield where
Yeah.
everything
I
is.
like-
They
and I
added
like-
some
yeah.
building elements in Battlefield 5. That was in the notes too. Is everybody
Oh.
has a kit where you can build something.
Fortifications. or
Yeah.
something,
Reinforce, yeah. The buildings.
That's cool.
But
That's
it
cool.
also seemed like a Siege, something that they learned from Siege too, where instead of just giving a couple of people specializations, give everybody the opportunity in various places to do something. And
I love the gun mechanics in that game, and that's part of the reason why I really enjoyed the campaigns. Some of the scenarios were a little bit repetitive-y, but it was cool environment. It was cool to see the maps used in a different way. But really, it's just really cool to shoot the guns without being like killed every 30 seconds. I enjoyed that.
well, that's one of my favorite things about the giant maps. 2142, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Future. It was the future. I like the larger maps because there is a lot more of a hey, I'm gonna do something like sort of a run into a line of bullets and fall down because everything's so spread out. You have a little bit more of an opportunity unless somebody's in like a Zeppelin or a tank. But yeah, if I can, I'm gonna give Battlefield 5 a shot. You know, already before E3, this fall is already looking real busy. real
Yeah, it
busy.
is.
So this one's October 19th, if I remember correctly. So to whatever else is coming out in the fall, it's going to be really hard to fit in with a lot of the surprise stuff that we'll probably be told about later this month. We're going to be talking about E3 all next week, some of our predictions, what we want, what we don't want. That'll be an exciting conversation too. But Nate, we've gotten to the part of the show where we're going to be talking about some choices. What made you want to bring this up and talk about this today?
I just playing Deadfire because one of the main things I enjoyed about it was the dialogue choices in terms of how people reacted to how you spoke, but also little choices that you make throughout the game that make like not only a visible impact but like a gameplay impact on the rest of the game. And it just kind of got me thinking about other games that did the same thing, games that don't. Some games make you think that, like, you're making a choice, but no matter what you do, the same thing happens.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion on that. What are some of your favorite games, that have made you choose, some that are, like, memorable, stuff like that. I asked some of my other friends. Everybody said Mass Effect.
Yeah, that's kind of the first one that comes up.
That's not a game that I played. I lost to the elevator boss in the first game. I was like, nope, not into this game enough to put up with this. I was thinking about all the elevators I would have to play. I'd have to sit throughout the rest of the game, and I stopped. I couldn't do it.
Enough of that.
But I am familiar with the world and like, especially like Mass Effect 2
And the Citadel.
Like 3 and like and the stuff that happens.
Well, I think the thing about Mass Effect was people were so invested in the fact that their choices did matter, and then at the end of it, it amounted to 3 small differentiating things that wasn't really a choice. Ultimately, the same thing was going to happen no matter what you did, and I think that's why there was so much disgruntled rage from the Mass Effect community, was because it wasn't. I made all of these choices to do something good, and overall it means nothing, which is kind of something about life, but ultimately not something that people want in their games. Stacey, was there any that came to mind for you?
And so I have really conflicted feelings about games where your choices matter, because I'm the kind of person who wants to explore every timeline and every opportunity. There's actually one game, a ridiculous little game where your choices make the game is about your choices.
Oh, okay.
It's this little indie game called Long Live the Queen.
Okay.
And it's not like a walk around game. It's literally just it's a magical girl princess game.
Okay.
Basically. And you just choose different like skills for her to brush up on, and there's a story that you follow. And you build up your skills as you go. You can choose, to study your courtly manners or your foreign intelligence or magic, or you can like become versed in the occult. And as you move through the story, well, you need certain skills to survive, otherwise you die horrifically.
And you don't know that until it's like, hey, you're going to die.
So you could be the most well-versed courtly princess with the best manners in the world, who knows the history of her country better than anyone in the world. But 20 weeks in, if you get a box of chocolates and you did not study, your presence with dogs and your ability to handle dogs, and they don't alert you that there's poison in that chocolate, you're dead.
All right.
Terrible.
And that's
it's
just
wonderful.
Game over?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a brutal game, but these choices, you craft the kind of person you want this little princess become queen to be.
I know what you're talking about. It's like a mobile game, right?
Essentially.
Yeah.
But it's
But is it like a visual
on
novel?
Steam.
That's
It's on
a
Steam.
sequel to what is it? I don't think it's called Long Live the King, but there's another one too where you play. Is that the one where you swipe? You have like yes, no, and it gives you choices, and you have to like pick with the cards.
No. It's
Okay,
different
that's a
than
different
that.
game.
It's but it's it's just a kind of simulator essentially.
Okay.
But you choose to train, so you can study, foreign intelligence, or you can study jousting.
Interesting.
And as you go through these different choices, and you can make choices where you essentially control her mental health. So you can have an extremely depressed, extremely angry princess, and it will boost her learning in certain areas.
Okay.
So you it feels horrible sometimes, because you're like, I need her to be
management
lonely
system, right.
and upset and just in a horrible mood always, so that you can level up faster.
Yeah.
and you can have wildly different endings to this game. I mean,
Okay. Miss K. Rose in chat is playing that and says that she's really enjoying it thanks to Steam's spring cleaning. Apparently they have it on sale.
I go back to that game regularly, like
Nice.
when I have a couple hours to kill, and just try to figure out as many different horrific things I can do. And like, well, there's like 30 different deaths you can get.
Mm-hmm. And is there an achievement for getting?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
100%.
I need them.
Oh, that's funny. Good funny, terrifying funny. For me, I usually don't have too many games where I am presented with those choices. I'm a fan of being lost in a narrative. If folks haven't picked that up yet already from me, but I do remember one, and it reminded me because it was on one of the lists that you sent. Batman Arkham City. It gives you there's a choice where you can either end the game early and just be like, you lost, thank you, or go. A part of the pre-order was you got a Catwoman DLC, which I started playing and I went, I guess the code didn't work, whatever. And you finish a boss battle with the Joker, and it like where Bruce could be dead, and it fades to black, and then it fades up and you're Catwoman. And you're like, I don't want to play this right now at all. So it got to me in a really, really bad time where I was like, this is the worst, possibly the best, possibly the worst. For me at the moment, I was just so into the story and so into the dynamic between Bruce and the Joker that I wasn't ready for Selina to pop up. But especially because it was a stealth sequence. It was all stealth, which for like Assassin's Creed, it's you get caught, you fight your way out, but this was you get caught back to one.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
so
it was
like Last of Us.
Yeah, it was rough. It was so rough. I finally get through it, and she finds out about Bruce, and you can decide either to go save him or I made my money, I can bounce. So I said I made my money, I could bounce, and then they rolled credits. That was the end of the game. And I went, that's bullshit. And then I had to do it again, reload my save, do it again, and make the other choice, to which Selina showed up and saved Bruce right after the fade to black happened in the main story. And one of the few things that wrecked that game for me was that moment. It was just the wrong time, the wrong place to put a decision, where ultimately it did affect the rest of the game, where it was like, nah, you're done. Congratulations. But it was more of a dick thing, like, good, great, good for you. You picked money, and you got an achievement for it, but it was really lame. Yeah. And so Steve, what's up?
I was just saying.
You're really quiet again, boss.
Got it. There we go.
Hey, bud.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, it just reminded me when Pat beat Prey. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he beat it early on the station, and he took that other option to just leave the station, and then he got the bad ending. And
that was it.
No.
Well, also the Far Cry, they've done it twice now, where if you listen to the bad guy and you sit and you wait, or however it is in 5, but at least in 4, when Pagan Min says, "Hey, I'll be back in 10 minutes," you wait 10 minutes. You're like, "All right, let's go build this reactor," and you lay your mom to rest, and that's the end of the game. That type of stuff I think is more beneficial to like the lifeblood of a game as opposed to a fake choice. That's something where it's like, hey, thanks for paying attention. We're going to give you a little bit something extra, as opposed to, at least in my case, here's 2 hours or however long it was. It felt like forever. But here's so long to give you something that ultimately doesn't matter. We just made more gameplay stuff as a character that you're not used to playing, that overall, if I didn't have that, wouldn't have affected the story other than she just shows up.
I think the distinction to make that's important when we're talking about like choice in games is the difference in choices that are like small choices that you just kind of make along the way that seem inconsequential that end up actually having consequences, and choices that are put there intentionally for you to think about and weigh the options, and like kind of the fun of that is for you to think about and weigh, in actually finally selecting a choice. And I think in some of those games where that is the way, I don't necessarily like it, but I can see why it doesn't really matter what you choose, because it's not about the outcome, it's about the choice itself.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I see some games doing that. One of the reasons why I like Deadfire is because like I said, there are a lot of choices you make that change the world around you. But there also is, a few changes, especially at the end of the game, that lots of big sweeping things happen. It seems, I'm not sure, I haven't finished another playthrough, but it seems like the end is the end no matter what you do. But there's a lot of stuff that happens that kind of you don't get to play afterwards. They're just like, all right, all of this stuff happened because of what you did. But
Like
now
it
the game,
closes some stuff
credits
off?
rolls, and then it's over. You just got to start a new game or load up before you ended it. Kind of like a Fallout situation.
Okay.
Um,
Depending on what group you picked.
right.
Yeah.
But again, for me, like as far as like old games, that was one of the reasons why I loved Fable so much. The whole Fable series is that choice of being able to. Excuse me.
Bless you. Woo. That was weird.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
I held it in. Yeah, I love the Fable series for that reason of kind of that being able to choose your choices and how that affects your character. Another game my friends mentioned to me, we were talking about Dishonored, especially Dishonored 2, based on the way that you dispatch enemies and kind of get through the levels.
I was talking about it with Steve
It
before we went
changes
live.
how the level works, right? So if you do the non-violent approach, it stays kind of like a clean, nice, pretty city. But the more people you kill, like the more gritty the whole environment around you gets.
And it's something I'm pretty sure you play too, similarly to Undertale.
Yes.
Based on how you, not even just you start killing bad guys or presumed good guys, or even how you dispose of people.
Right.
That has affected it. And I'm more of a fan of those choices, of being able to choose through gameplay as opposed to here are two people, which one do we kill?
Or who do you
Wolfenstein.
follow in this case?
Yeah.
I like both because I mean there are scenarios like, you look at the Wolfenstein games and in not the one before the most recent one.
The Old Blood? New Gods?
The first one that
Old Blood.
refreshed this.
Sorry,
the
guys.
first one
That's
that
fine.
refreshed.
Yeah.
New Order.
Yes, New
New
Order.
Order. New-
You make
New
a
Order,
choice
Old
in
Gods.
the beginning of that changes how you play the rest of the game. There's kind of like two different paths.
Two different paths to take, yeah.
I like stuff like that. I think it's cool. It kind of gives it, refreshes replayability, but also it makes it feel like your choice actually matters. Now, granted, you still kind of get to the same place, but you take a different path. It branches outward, eventually it comes back in. But it's nice that they put that extra time in, that the other stuff is there. But I think part of the reason why we get some games where you make a choice and it seems like it doesn't really matter is because that takes a lot of resources
Agreed.
to invest into stuff that some players may never even experience. Some people only play a game once, they make their choices, that's it. And you have all this stuff that essentially you wasted money making.
Well, and especially even from a gamer point of view, for a game that's 40 plus hours, to know that there's a whole other set of choices I could have made, especially in a game that's more branching than just one or two big choices that you make that goes off. To know that there are kind of almost infinite possibilities in this case, that I would have to play this game that has taken, more than 40 hours to complete once. Just as someone who doesn't have enough time to do that for one game, that's kind of devastating to me. I'd want to know all of these storylines, and I can go watch them on YouTube, I guess. But
That's what happened to me with God of War. I was just because I knew I wanted to let one of y'all borrow it, I just went God of War Secret Ending, and then I found out that it's not necessarily a 100% completion ending. That they mention something in dialogue that says, "Oh, go do this." And then it happens. But I just was in a mode of, okay, I'm done. What's the 100% ending? So it's a lot of, I can definitely see that. And when it comes to choices through gameplay where it's more about the choice than the results of that choice, one that comes to mind is Modern Warfare 2 in the airport. Is you have the choice to shoot at the civilians in the airport, or you have the choice to not. And ultimately, what you do in that moment in the overall story doesn't necessarily matter as much as being present for that event.
Right.
But it's more of a decision as the player to make that decision.
Right.
And in a similar vein to that, I was rewatching before I finished God of War, I rewatched God of War 3 as a 2-hour movie, and I forgot how much Kratos just killed civilians. Like, it wasn't just the skeleton warriors from Hades that were coming up and attacking. It was he was indiscriminately killing all of those people. And back at that time, I was like, cool, great, whatever. But now looking back at that choice that I made to do that, it's like, wow, what a dick. Like, and not just Kratos, but me for just going, yeah, whatever, I've got these cool chains, bruh, so angry.
So I think the other thing too, in the conversation about choices that my friend brought up that I hadn't even thought about is also just like little choices you make in terms of just like gameplay choices. So even things like League of Legends, for example, being a jungle player, the whole role is based around decision making and choosing, am I going to focus on top lane or am I going to focus on bot lane? And that influences the route that I take around the map. But then top lane dies before I get there. So now that choice, now I have to make a new choice. And so you kind of get these constantly branching paths that lead you to where the game is. And you get put in situations where, okay, well, I have to make the decision now. Do I try to steal Baron or do I just let them take it and we turtle? In the same way that in like a game like PUBG, you have to make a choice. Am I going to drop at school or am and blade it out, or am I going to drop?
Despite how forward
are we hear gunshots close to us? Are we going to go towards it and try to take them out? Are we going to take a car and drive the other way? Right? Are we going to ride the edge of the circle? Are we going to drive straight in the middle? Are we going to go for that crate? Things like that are choices, and I think that's why games like that, same thing with like Fortnite, are interesting because you get those same kind of narrative choices without necessarily, you don't get as much production value.
But you're telling your own story.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
You get immediate choices that you can pretty quickly go back in and redo that choice and try it again in a completely different way.
In a matter of space.
Yes. Well, you deal with the consequences, and you're allowed to try again. But also, I think part of the reason why games like PUBG and Fortnite and League are so interesting is because of that. Like you always bring in the knowledge. If you're a smart player and you learn from your mistakes, you always bring in that new knowledge into the game. But it's always a new game. You're always playing against different people. You're never going to be presented with the same choices twice. Like maybe similar situations, but it's never going to be exactly the same parameters.
At least not for a long time.
Opponent. It's always going to be a different weapon. It's always going to be a different amount of people alive. It's going to be different.
And
there's
what
always
say,
a variable.
If at first you don't succeed, you dust yourself off and try again. So.
As you just did.
Yeah. Use take two. Something that I just thought of that if it had existed by the time the movie came out. I'm excited for the future battle royale of Live, Die, Repeat, the Tom Cruise movie.
Oh boy.
Where you just re-instance, but it's the same thing over and over and over again. But there's another choice that I wanted to bring up, going back to God of War. You get button prompts throughout classic God of Wars of like QuickTime events. Like you would start a kill sequence on a chimera and it would be triangle, square, circle, triangle, X, and then you eviscerate it, yay! And so through this whole time, you have to know you have to press that in order to advance. At the end of the game, when you're killing Zeus, it's like just keep mashing circle and you keep punching and punching and punching, and then blood splatter on the screen. You keep punching, blood splatter on the screen until it's completely red, but it's still got that button thing. And little did players know the first time through, you can stop after a little while, but you're just fulfilling that revenge. You have the choice to stop. And there's a similar... I'm sorry if this ends up being a spoiler, but it's not. There's a similar decision near the end of God of War where it's like tap circle, and me remembering like I killed the shit out of Zeus, and it was just gross and disgusting and rough, where I would do it a little bit and then stop and see if that was all I had to do, and then do it a little bit and stop and see if that was all I had to do, until the story came through and was a re-informing of the choice of like, yeah, stop, like, yeah, it was a wonderful moment that last week I talked about. There are some moments for God of War fans that inform some of the things that happened in this newest God of War, and that was one of them, where if you didn't have that moment of a complete red screen beating the ever-living crap out of Zeus, you probably would approach that last fight a little bit differently maybe. But so Stacey, you have the inherent choice to do the single a walk forward of a line of story in a game like a Skyrim or an Assassin's Creed, but you make the choice to learn as much about the world, explore as much about the world. Where does that choice come from?
I mean, if I'm dropped in the middle of a world, I want to know as much about it as possible. I like knowing the background. And I feel like sometimes, especially, I mean, occasionally in games like Skyrim, there's a couple of places I remember discovering that are, not marked on the map, that you just stumble onto someone's house. And you have the choice of if you're going to immediately fight them and kill them or if you're going to make friends. And I'm recalling one of these people who ended up teaching me a whole bunch of bow and arrow skills, because I made friends with her instead of I helped her out instead of killing her. And so I get in these games, even though those choices don't really matter in endgame, especially with Skyrim, because you can choose the Empire or the Stormcloaks. So you do have a branching choice in that. It does make little moment-to-moment differences. Another one, I guess, is, who you make friends with. Horizon Zero Dawn is another one. Yeah. It makes a huge difference in the end scene. How many quests you complete, how many people you make friends with. Again, if you kill someone or spare them, they'll show up later on.
Yeah, they'll show up for that last boss fight. Depending on how many groups you help, it could really, really help that last fight. You
can have a full crew on hand there to help you out. Or, if you've made enemies of everybody and chosen all the nasty dialogue choices.
Yeah, and actually that brings up a good point. As is per usual with me, I forget a lot about Horizon Zero Dawn, but ultimately that was one of the ones where I didn't really waver when it came to my decisions. I always went with. So one of the things that actually I think kind of soured the experience a little bit, and I know you didn't play too much of it, Nate. Did you ever get to a choice where it would show brain, heart,
or force, strength,
or like a fist or something. So they would label the decisions in there. What was the game? There was
There's
one
an option to turn that on in Deadfire.
Oh, is there? To know what your
so you kind of like the compassionate
to what kind of temperament is applied to each.
Because that was one of the
aggressive.
things.
This is the passive one.
Yeah,
this is the friendly one.
That was one of the actually. Oh God, I didn't like LA Noire for that reason. Because
you couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell. It would be like, oh, listen, I have to talk to you. Hey, fucker. It would
right. The dialogue option sounds great, and I appreciated
they fixed that by the way.
Yeah, I know the update. They made it like they just said what the emotions were as opposed to the lines of dialogue. But when it came to Horizon, that ultimately helped my decision making. But because I ended up going with my I think my heart. Ultimately, I ended up picking the heart a little bit more.
I was the reasonable, rational one most
with the brain.
of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sort of simplifies what the dialogue is and what the choice means and what that ends up becoming. And ultimately, I didn't think about the fact that me going to all of these different groups and having a positive effect on them is what brought them to the end battle. I thought it was just, these are just the people that are here at the end battle.
No, you collect your allies.
Your folks, yeah. I didn't do too many side missions, but maybe there's enough in the main story to get you at least the basics for that final boss.
Yeah, there are some that you can't help but run into.
Yeah.
That you'll encounter no matter what, and you usually have to positively complete their parts. So. Yeah,
but that was one where ultimately, aside from the final boss, that was one where I didn't think that my choices really mattered. But
overall, I agree with you. Just for who shows up at the end, and I can think that happens in Final Fantasy too. In Final Fantasy 15, not for the main end battle, but for a extra side battle where you fight the giant, enormous turtle thing. So you could have everyone's help or no one's help.
Okay. Folks in chat, if you're watching us live, or if you're not watching us live, you can be watching us live on inventoryfullpt on Twitch. So twitch.tv/inventoryfullpt. Make sure to follow, and if you have a Twitch Prime subscription available, give us a subscription. We've got a couple of fun emotes, and it helps support the show. We're going to be making some improvements, some changes. Thanks to all of the people that have been subscribing and providing bits. Thank you very much. And we do stream throughout the week. Stacey's been streaming Overwatch. I've been streaming Minecraft. I'm going to try to make the Minecraft at least as much of a weekly thing as I possibly can until my creation is complete. But we appreciate everybody who watches live, and it helps us follow the conversation or bring the conversation around and possibly pivot to something that we didn't think about. So if you're live in chat right now, let us know if there's a game that you played that you thought the choices were really important or really mindful, really impactful. Because similarly, it's one of the reasons why I can't play the Telltale games too much, is because a lot of the times, it doesn't really matter. The most recent one I played was Minecraft Story Mode, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to play the Game of Thrones one because my wife is really into Game of Thrones, and
I want to play that one too.
Yeah.
Even though ultimately none of your choices in that one
Yeah,
matter.
I've tried to play that one a few times.
then not good.
It hasn't stuck.
Especially with now, since they're all licensed, it's really hard to except for, The Walking Dead did have original characters in it and some comic characters as well. So they established early on that it was separate from the TV show and separate from the comic universe in terms of like plot and what happens in time periods and areas and things like that. So that was their way of going, no, everything matters. But then I wish they would remake the Back to the Future one, because if they did it in sort of the modern Telltale style, it would feel a little bit better. The Batman one too was kind of I didn't play it, but I worked on a show that played it. But yeah, the Telltale ones is like, hey, choice, and then ultimately it's not. It's still the story that they want to tell.
Yeah, well, it's that storybook, choose your own adventure, but those always had the same endings at the end, even though there was lots of different ways to get there in the middle.
Yeah, especially for Walking Dead season 1. It's like ultimately this has to happen. This is going to happen, and it's whether you can or not. Candace Grant, I'm late, but throwing these oldies but goodies for choice. Knights of the Old Republic, very good. Though with the way that the first one ends, like ultimately that you do land on that. That's what ends up happening with that. And I still don't want to spoil that game because it's such a good thing. Miss K. Rose, I've played a handful of visual novels, and while I feel like my choices matter, I hate having to wait to make a choice. Yeah, I could see that. And it was the same with Hadoful Boyfriend for me. I'm kidding, never played it. But it was funny. It's funny playing Dream Daddy. And I've still only played it once.
Your
but
choices matter.
Choices definitely do matter. But playing that with my wife, which was very interesting, and I'm excited to go back and play it again. But it was just like, did we just have a one-night stand with this guy? I think we did. And then it's like, achievement, you're a bad dad. Damn it, no, what did we do? What? No, go back, revert.
Wow.
Go back to old
this
save.
was a really interesting storyline you created.
Yeah, Richard, yeah, he's a bad boy. Anyway, but yeah, it's weird because initially, I said at the top of the conversation, I don't remember a lot, and then it ends up being a lot more than I thought.
There's a lot of games I can think of that you have choices in
that mean something.
that do mean something.
What was there ever a choice that either of y'all made that stuck with you, like the fact that you made that choice or didn't make that choice?
I want to say yes, but I can't think of anything, so no.
No, okay.
Empire.
Yeah. Oh,
The choices
yeah.
at the end. That ending just, and that ends up being, even though you play the same beats in the story that is told at the end is wildly different depending on your
ascended.
choices. Yeah, and so and because you can technically succeed or fail in that game. I haven't played both ways.
Okay.
I've just finished it. But I suppose you could fail if you don't keep up, if you don't choose the right people to ascend, or you don't win all of your matches. So that does end up being pretty choice heavy, and the narrative that they weave at the end is extremely specific to the choices that you make. So that could play out any number of ways.
And that's another one, Pyre. You're making a choice after every game.
Yeah, and so actually one of the choices that I did make, I let one of the enemies win in a big important match, and she got to go free. And so the little ending blurb about her, I was like, oh. I don't know. It
Made the right
stuck with
decision?
me. I did.
Ooh,
Regret it.
I do just want to give a shout out to Crusader Kings, which is a game literally about making choices that span generations.
Well, I would say Civ too,
yeah,
but it's Civ is so iterative too.
you don't really make choices.
But I think those choices
you
don't necessarily
gather
matter.
resources and you build things.
And depending on who you ally
Whereas,
with or
like,
make war with.
Right, because with Crusader Kings, it really matters like who you ally with, who you marry your kids to,
Thought of another one.
and then who those kids, how many kids do they have, and like who do they get married to, and what alliances get formed, and then you get, because the game can span like 1,000 years. You get 100 years later, like, oh, your great grandson now has a claim on one of your lands, and he's also the king of France now, and now he's like, oh, hey man, I want that. And it's like, bro, I don't even know you, but
He's a distant relative.
50 years ago I was like, man, I gotta marry them to somebody in France. So stuff like that I
This
think
is how they get
super
you.
interesting too.
Choosing to date Solus in Dragon Age Inquisition stuck with me because of things I don't want to spoil. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I just remembered one of my favorite games for the PlayStation 3 that is all about choices, and that was Infamous. I loved Infamous, and the main thing is you either choose to be a good guy or a bad guy, and if you want to play with all of the best toys, you either have to go full good or full bad. And I was trying to 100% that game. I never did, but one of the easy ones without having to start all the way back over was, even though I had cleared every single area and I was a good guy, to go full bad, you just had to beat up civilians, blow up property, things like that. But as I was doing it, I was hating it. I was hating myself because I was like, no, these folks look at me as like a good guy, and now they're throwing like Molotov cocktails at me. I could not do the bad stuff in that game.
What you're saying is you wouldn't enjoy Westworld.
I would not enjoy Westworld.
Does that make me a bad person that, like, anytime I'm in those open world games with a bunch of civilians, like, I don't like make a point to do that, but when you reach that point where like you've had a long session, you're like, all right, I'm winding down. I'm not gonna do another mission. I'm just kind of walking around, and then I just start killing people. Like, it just usually happens. Blow some shit up, shoot some civilians.
It depends on the game for me. For Infamous, because it was so tied with establishing this identity as a hero for these people in a crisis situation, and helping establish food and supplies to a city.
What did you do at the end? Did you?
All good, like all 100% good
Okay.
stuff. Like no, and for Infamous 2 and Second Son and all of that stuff, I didn't I even looked at some of the powers and went.
So Second Son is a sequel of Infamous 2, right?
Yeah. So they took the data of.
So they does it assume the good ending, or is it the
It
bad
assumed
ending?
one of the endings.
Which one?
I'm not gonna say.
Oh, come on.
Play it.
I'm not gonna play it.
Too bad.
So, yeah.
Then sucks to be you. But they looked at the player data. They looked at.
Okay, but I want to know if you killed all the humans or if you killed all the superhumans.
Anyway, let me get to the point.
Okay.
And it goes with the theme. Sucker Punch took the choices that folks made at the end of Infamous 2. They looked at the trophy data and over a period of time, and whoever did most of either the good or the bad ending, that was the canon ending. So they left it up to the player base to go, all right, well, Cole's dead, and how he died and the things around his death, whatever. How are we going to move forward with this story? Is it going to be Cole? Is it going to be a new protagonist? And it's a new protagonist because Cole died and has stayed dead. And that's something that they talked about in Second Son, where Cole is dead and he stayed dead. But it affected how the world went forward with treating the superhuman gene, not the X gene. But yeah, I Infamous was a game all about choice, but I couldn't bring myself to making the wrong one.
What? Go ahead.
So, well, speaking of that wrong choice, so going back to Undertale for a second, you don't necessarily know that you have a choice at the beginning of that game. Someone had to tell me I had a choice. I mean, I would have just blindly started fighting, probably, because that's what you're generally coded to do in a video game. So, you get through the first couple fights and you discover that you have a choice. You can't go back with a game like Undertale.
You can't clear the save.
You cannot.
No.
Because you try to, and you start again, and they remember.
They remember. It's terrifying.
Horrifying.
A game that remembers.
But so, yeah, when you're not presented with a clear choice like that, sometimes you don't know until you've already made the first choice and like started yourself down a pathway. And in a lot of the games, it's hard to go back from there.
Yeah. Agreed. But that was the thing with Infamous, where it was save a cat stuck in a tree or burn the tree. So it was very clearly defined what the good and the bad choices were. So that it wasn't like, gotcha. So it was helpful, but it was also just like, use your head. If you want to be a bad guy, be a bad guy. But if not, whatever.
Well, talking about that too also reminded me of one of the cool features in Deadfire is how it is a sequel to the first Pillars game, and that game had a lot of decisions and stuff too. You had a very big role in kind of how the world played out, and you made a lot of decisions throughout the course of the game. And because of that, you can import your save, and it drastically affects how the rest of the game
Keeps those choices.
plays out. Yeah, and what's really cool is it even shows you in certain dialogue conversations, there's like a little marker that says this is because of the decisions that you made in the first Pillars game. And it's nice because they offer a nice kind of easy, because I didn't play the first game, I know what happened, but I didn't play the first game. They give you a nice selection of like basically like, here's what you did. You did everything good. You did everything kind of even. You did everything bad. You did this, like basic kind of generalizations. But you can also go and do a custom like and run through almost every situation and like side stuff too. And like, what did your companions do? Did you finish their quest? Did they die? Like stuff like that. And then when you load it up, when you start the game, some of those people are not there. Some of them are there. Some of them are happy to see you. Some of them are not.
I'm about it, man.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's killer. Any final thoughts about choices in games and decisions? Anything that you would recommend in terms of a game where you can where choices matter?
I mean, I recommend New Vegas if nobody's played it, but I really recommend Deadfire if you're into classic RPGs, even a little bit. If you're into Dungeons and Dragons, if you like good voice acting and you like story.
How does this compare to what was the other one?
Divinity?
Divinity, yeah.
Divinity. Actually, I forgot to tell you about this to add on the news. They announced they're doing a definitive edition. It just launched for Xbox.
Yeah, I knew that it was coming to console.
And PC is going to get the update of all. Apparently, there's the changes are in the thousands. They've said of like quality of life changes and stuff like that. So I'm excited to jump into it again. I never finished it. The group I was playing with, we stopped playing with it. I'm throwing shade at you guys. So I really want to finish it. I kind of want to do a solo game, but it's also been so fun multiplayer that I'd rather just like finish the one we started. But I'm excited for that. In terms of like, that game is fun in a different way. It's fun in that it also gives you a lot of choices in terms of like different things that you can do. But the Pillars really made me feel like I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with like a DM who was like reading the story to me and like doing different voices for the characters and stuff. And even the way the party just kind of talks to themselves as things are happening, like based on what's going around. Or even when you do something and someone stops and wants to talk to you afterwards and be like, yo, are you going to do this all the time? Should I leave? Like, what's going on? It was really cool. It felt very immersive and alive. And that's something I haven't felt from a game in a while. Divinity looks great. I like the turn-based combat better. I like the story and what they're doing. But in terms of like the conversation stuff, I don't think it's on the same level. I think Deadfire does that way better.
Okay, cool. Stacey, is there one that comes to mind?
I mean, I'll throw Pyre out there now since I think that you can have a plethora of kind of endings, and that really gives you the freedom to follow the same exact gameplay like elements, but you could have drastically different endings.
And it's real fun.
Yeah, and you can craft your own very personalized set of stories based on the characters that you identify with.
Yeah,
and it is a lot of fun.
I would also I like that world a lot to the point where a Pyre animated series or something like that. But then that takes the choice away from you.
Yes. Well,
the only thing that left that I would have to say is choice does matter to me in a game, and when I started playing The Last of Us way back when, I didn't like the character that Noel was. And because that was a representation of me and how I was playing, I didn't like how some of the choices that Noel made were out of my control. And ultimately, I ended up stopping playing the game. I watched the ending, and I saw the decision that or Joel made. Is it Joel or is it Noel? Joel. Duh. And part of the reason I'm mentioning this is because Patrick isn't here. I ended up seeing the decision that Joel made, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to be that person. That's not me. If a game is supposed to reflect my decisions, yes, it's a narrative to, hey, you're just walking in this person's shoes. Mm-hmm. That is to say, if there was a Last of Us movie, I'll be there. I'll watch a Last of Us movie, but you're not going to see me making that decision that he made.
And it's a lot harder when it's you and you've put these hours and hours and hours of gameplay only to come to a decision that you don't agree with or wouldn't personally make. It's a lot more personal.
And similarly to like the Mass Effect thing, where it's like I made all of these decisions, but I wouldn't choose any of this. Mm-hmm. And I did think there was a bit of a huge way too over the top backlash when it came to that. But ultimately, it's that same thing of all of my character, all of the stuff that I did as a player ended up meaning nothing because you wrote yourself into a corner. Or, the decision that was made for Last of Us leading into Last of Us 2 may make Last of Us 2 better, and I may like Last of Us 2 better than I ever would have liked Last of Us 1. But when it comes to games with choices, I like when it's clearer about it, and if there's a highlight from this generation that you can play pretty easily, I would say Infamous Second Son. It was one of my first absolute must-buys on the PlayStation 4, and it was a really early release in the life cycle of the PlayStation 4, so it's definitely been a minute. It still looks real pretty. Actually, I haven't played it on the Pro yet. It takes place in Seattle, so it's rainy and gorgeous in that game. So I have it on PlayStation Plus because it was free like a month or two back. So I would recommend that. I don't know what Patrick would recommend, but Steve, Steve in the booth?
I know what Patrick would recommend.
What would Patrick recommend?
The Witcher.
Yeah, that's right, Witcher. Yeah, good choice. Yep. Steve, what would you recommend?
That is a hilarious segue because I still have yet to play The Witcher.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No, but you had it though, didn't you?
I've started it a few times, but
yeah, I still have it. I download my games from my PS4, so they're all
I have
sitting
all the
on the hard
expansions
drive or on the servers.
Can't get past that first hour.
But which one? What would you recommend, Steve?
I would recommend the Deus Ex series just because I'm a big fan of that world and that style of storytelling. It matches well to the gameplay and the elements that they put into the director's cut of Human Revolution a handful of years ago actually came full circle to the fan requests of that game when it originally came out, saying that they could not actually do non-lethal boss fights. And so when the director's cut of that had come out, they put all that in, and they also added a director's cut narrative throughout the whole game while you're playing it. And artistically and thematically, I would recommend that next to Mass Effect. Again, the original trilogy. That's one of the reasons why I still have a PS3.
The Ridge Tridge.
Yeah.
And that was not to go too far off the rails, but since Mass Effect 1 didn't come out on the PlayStation 3, Mass Effect 2 started with a truncated version similar to what Nate mentioned about Pillars of Eternity of Mass Effect 1 to get all of those decisions in, right?
That is correct, and they also did the same for Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, okay. Very cool.
Very even Mass Effect 3, just to reiterate one more thing on that, because I have not seen it done in any other game, but they did have a decision when you started the game, not just for the background of storyline, but a decision as to what you wanted to be more narratively focused with the gameplay while you were playing it. Because you could play it where it would just randomly select the different elements of the story and you just watch what happens.
Oh, that's cool.
Or you could have it more narratively focused towards the choices that you made in the game with the characters and the storyline, and have easier gameplay. And I've not seen options like that done in a game since.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Very cool. Thank you for sharing, Steve.
Of course.
And thank you everybody in chat for joining us and sharing your 2 cents. I liked having time to discuss something like this and I hope that we can have more time in the future. Tell the fine folks at Popcorn Talk, and we can get more studio time. Or we need to figure out a way to do discussions like these out of studio. Yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
But thank you to everybody. Thank you to fine folks at Popcorn Talk. You can follow them at the Popcorn Talk. But until next time, Stacey, what are you working on? Where can the folks find you?
Man, I am working on going away for a few weeks.
Hell yeah.
No. You know what? Maybe I'll start The Witcher this week. Maybe I'll finish Doki Doki Literature Club.
Dude,
Let's see. We'll figure. I gotta do these things.
Yes, I know you've got to do
Play
stuff.
God of War.
And God of War. I'm gonna play God of War.
Finish stuff before you start new stuff.
All right. I'm gonna finish God
You're
of War
asking
this
for a
week.
lot there.
That's what I'm going
Fair,
to do. You
fair,
are.
fair.
I'm so sorry that I'm like this. You can find me all over the web at Stacey Shuttles. You can yell at me to finish a certain game. Maybe I'll
I'm
actually
sorry
do
I'm
it.
like this. Nate, what are you working on?
I am desperately trying not to start my next playthrough of Deadfire. I'm trying
But
to do
do
other
it.
things.
Until what?
I
Like, what are you
don't-
trying to do
I
instead?
just anything else. I just need to be productive and not get sucked right back in after I just attained freedom. Other than that, I'm gonna be playing Destiny. Lots of Destiny. Should be the new faction rally. Is coming up this week with some changes. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I'm enjoying the PvP, so that's where I'm at. You can find me all over the places where you find people at Dog Like Nate. Hit me up at Twitter. We'll play Destiny and kill people. It's fun.
And you can find me at Mark B. Donica. What's this week? This week on the Rooster Teeth show, we're talking about Red versus Blue, as well as some of the Rooster Teeth pilots that they've been airing over the past month. And then I'll be back streaming Minecraft. This weekend at some point I'll be streaming another Minecraft adventure. But I'm also I'm trying to finish up stuff before it gets real busy game season again too. Like I still need to finish Wolfenstein 2.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. But yeah, I like the world of games that exists right now. As much as I would like to go back and play stuff like Second Son again. There's too much out. There's really too much out, and I you know what? I'm gonna play some more not Destiny, some more Overwatch.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, Freudian slip.
Yeah, let's play that Overwatch.
Yeah, and some of the events that I can play with or without a group. I gotta play some more Lucio Ball.
I'll play with you guys if you play.
Yay! We did it.
Otherwise, I'm not playing that game.
Nailed
That's
it.
fair.
But thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of Inventory Full or listening. If you're watching, make sure to hit us up on iTunes and leave us a review. If you're listening, make sure to check us out on Inventory Full PT on Twitch. Subscribe if you have a Twitch Prime subscription available. We would be ever so humbled if you would provide it to us, because it will help us grow and do more home shows like we were just discussing. Yeah, it would help us with budget and things like that. But thank you so much for watching this episode. We will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.